Welcome to the Lead Digital podcast, the show where we explore innovation, operational excellence, and digital transformation in field service. We bring you insights from the brightest minds in leadership, business strategy, service excellence, and innovation to help you stay ahead in an ever evolving industry. Today, we're joined by a seasoned leader in field service innovation and operational excellence, Adam Neale. As Director of Engineering and Supply Chain at SCC, Adam brings a wealth of experience in service strategy, technology-driven transformation, and operational leadership. At SCC, Adam oversees advanced field services, ensuring the business has the IT infrastructure and support they need to thrive in an increasingly digital world. With SCC's cutting-edge security and service solutions, Adam and his team are at the forefront of driving efficiency, resilience, and next-level customer experience. In this episode, we'll dive into how innovation is revolutionizing field service, how service organizations can optimize efficiency while delivering top-tier customer support, and the leadership mindset needed to drive innovation and operational excellence. Let's get started. Hi, Adam. Welcome along.
Hi, Catherine. How you doing? You okay?
Yes, very good. Thank you. Very good. Thanks for joining us today on our podcast. Really
No
grateful
problem.
to have you here. I look forward to a good discussion. So I think just to start with, can you give us an overview of like your career journey and how you got into field service leadership?
Yeah, sure. When I left school, I was a little bit, I don't know what to do. And someone said, "Why don't you join the army?" And actually, that's what I did. It's kind of a step for me of, I don't know what I want to do, so do the army. And actually, I loved it. It kind of set me up for the rest of my life. If I look at it now, I met my wife in the army as well, and both my children are in the forces now. So it's become a bit of a family thing. And I think that is what set me on my leadership direction anyway from the start. So I saw some brilliant leadership and I saw some really poor leadership whilst I was there, as you could imagine. I think times have changed a lot these days now. But when I left the army anyway, I did a couple of engineering type roles, and then I joined a company called Arkiva where I really found my feet and loved, best part of 12 years in total there as well. And I did a few different roles whilst I was there, and I got my first real get going at leadership there as well. So the team leader looking after a team up in the Midlands, and then from there I kind of spread out and sort of looking after a wider geography, and then ended up looking after majority of the UK there as well with Arkiva. I left Arkiva and moved into BT as engineering director, which was really, really great. But I hit just as COVID came 9 months later. So imagine being 9 months into a new role, looking after 1,800 engineers up and down the UK, looking after all the power infrastructure and all of the core network. And then 9 months later, all of a sudden, COVID kicks in. And I think that really helped me kind of learn some new skills and some abilities, trying to manage people remotely. I think it came with COVID as well. It hit quite quickly, but it was really good. And then after about 4 years, I left and I joined SCC, where I am now, and I'm leading again field teams and warehousing, logistics, service desks with the SCC.
Wow, so it sounds like you've had quite an interesting and varied journey, sort of learning, I guess, being in different roles, seeing different parts of the business as well. That's always quite interesting, not to just see sort of one side of the business, but to be able to touch various points of it. It gives you that wider understanding of like other people's challenges and goals and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So have you had any sort of challenges along the way that you've had to overcome that you feel might have shaped your journey?
yeah, I think any field leader, any description will have probably some of the same challenges along the way. People, let's be truthful, when you're leading big field teams, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter how well you communicate, how brilliant you are kind of trying to help improve employee engagement, etc. You are still always going to have those people challenges at times. You've got to help people have had a bereavement all of a sudden, who
Mm.
may have had something happen in their personal life which is really impacting on them and will impact on their career as well, and potentially would have to leave a company, such as if you need a security clearance and you got arrested, you're going to lose that. Trying to deal with human beings has probably been the biggest challenge along the way. It's the bit that my wife always says, I don't know how you do it. You seem to enjoy dealing with people, and I think it has to come naturally. You've got to enjoy being around people and talking and conversing. At times it can be hard when you're hearing some things and the action you're about to take will impact on someone's life. And that's really
Hmm.
challenging sometimes. And I've had to challenge myself to sometimes try and say what I'm about to implement, I know will have a direct impact on someone, such as if you were making redundancies. But I always
Yeah.
say my view is always it's about trying to make sure the company is in the best position for the rest of its 10, 15, 20 years in a career. And that means that the majority of people will always have a career for the long term, which means sometimes you have to make some really hard decisions, which isn't nice. And that's challenged me, you know, mentally to get my head around that at times. But it's something you've got to do. If I look at, somebody who may have been in a business 50 years, they're close to retirement and redundancies come up. And a question got asked to me once, but why are we doing this? And I explained, it's for the long term of the company. We were going in a different direction, and there are some new apprentices, 50 apprentices at the time we just started. I want to ensure that they've got a 40, 50-year career, but
Mm.
we've got to do that by making the efficiencies and the savings and improve where we can. So yeah, I think it's people and the emotions around that has been my biggest challenge.
Yeah. And I guess balancing up that what's good for the company and also having that empathy and understanding the impact that it's going to have on that person is quite a tough mental balance to have, isn't it? You know you have to do it, but you know it's going to be hard, sort of thing.
Completely. And I've been at risk of redundancy myself personally, and I think that has allowed me, because I've been at risk a few times throughout my career, to understand when you're making that call, you know what the personal impact will come. You know that people will be going home that night, sat there worrying, concerned. What's going to happen if I am made redundant? Can I pay the bills? What's going to happen to my family? And having that personal experience yourself, I think, is something you need to be able to do if you're going to be leading people.
Sure. Sure. I think we'll pick up a bit on employee experience a bit later, but I want to have a little talk about innovation. So, I guess what does innovation mean to you in field service, and how have you seen it sort of evolve in recent years?
Wow, wow. In recent years, it's evolved at speed, at pace. And I mean, if we look back, the Industrial Revolution took, decades to come through into reality. If we look in the last decade, we've accelerated so fast in the world. Specifically, if we then look at field service, where we've come from and where we are now, it's night and day. And actually, at times, it's happening at such a pace, it's hard to stay on top of all the innovations coming through. And I think it's about trying to actually take a step back sometimes and go, well, actually, you don't need the latest toy, the latest gadget. Sometimes you have to ask, what do we need rather than what do we want? Because otherwise, I probably get about 10 emails a day at the moment for people going, we can offer you this. And I'm there sometimes a little bit overwhelmed by the amount coming through. So I've had to learn to take a step back sometimes, because otherwise you will end up trying to implement everything and innovate everything at the same time. But actually, do you need to innovate that? If you've got a scheduling tool, do you need to innovate it? Yes or no? And it might be yes, but you have to ask yourself, why are we having to innovate this? Is it because it's stopping you from doing what you can do to the best of your abilities? Actually, is it only allowing you to be 99% effective? And actually, spending £100,000 to get that extra 1% may not be the right kind of route to go. So yeah, innovation is about evolving what you do, doing things sometimes in a totally different way, in a new way, with new tools and gadgets. But sometimes you've got to take a step back and go, do we really need that?
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in what's the new shiny thing.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
it's AI at the moment. Like you can't go anywhere to any conference or looked on LinkedIn or anything like that without AI being sort of forefront. Do you see how AI, or what's your thought on how AI is going to transform field service operations?
I think we'll end up stepping back into this conversation again later when we talk about employee experience as well.
Mm.
But AI, somebody said to me once, "Oh, AI's coming. You won't need any field engineers anymore." And I try to point out that you will still need field engineers. You will still need a human being to go and do certain tasks. But where AI helps is it's more for me, it's an aid to understand what you need to do. And at times, as a high level example, you might have some AI running which can tell you the best route to get to somewhere. Like we all use a Google Maps now, it's using AI in reality to look at the real life data to go, don't go anywhere near the M6 junction 10 because it's absolutely packed car park at the moment. Take the M6 toll because that's going to save you an hour and a half in your journey. From a um, field service operations, I think it really helps you to make the right decisions by looking at hundreds, thousands of pieces of information that a human couldn't take together in one go. AI brings it together very quickly and gives you insights, it gives you relevant information. It's then down to you, I think, to interpret how you use that as well.
Yeah, so it's doing that processing and sort of giving the suggestion almost that then that human element needs to come in and go, right, I've got all this information at lightning speed. Now I make the decision and
Yeah.
implement what needs to happen. Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
sounds good. And is that something that you're doing at SCC at the moment? Like, what are you doing around sort of emerging technologies at the moment?
So I think SCC, the company, is at the forefront as well when it comes to emerging technologies, especially when you look at some of our secure offerings we've got as well in our cyber offerings, where AI is a big part of that as well. We're also using it on a field perspective as well. So we're using AI to look at our performance, how we've done things. When we look at our scheduling, obviously we're using AI to try and improve our scheduling. So it's so easy to just drop and drag something on a screen to pass a job to an engineer, but actually have you, if you're sat in the scheduling team, looked at the latest travel, looked at all of the metrics we've got, whereas AI can do that very quickly for you and give you the best suggestion. You may not take that suggestion, but it can use it. So that's what we're starting to leverage it in the field specifically at the moment. And also on some of our customers, we've got tools that we use which have got AI to help them, which can be helping looking at the network, obviously, and can predict what's coming rather than not. You know, the most basic example I think everyone looks at is you see a fan ramping up on a server. Well, why is it ramping up? Actually, how long do you need to wait before you go, it's going to fall over? Sometimes you can see something in the AI can start to look at it and go, really within the next 3 days, that's going to fall over. So you probably want to send somebody. It can then look at your system and go, I can see you're sending engineer A tomorrow anyway to change a filter in another room. Make sure they attend that one at the same time. So rather than waiting for, from a field perspective, the worst thing is that P1 critical fault. You can do it in a slower time as well and bundle it with other jobs.
Yeah, so it's so that shift towards what can be done preventative
Yes.
rather than just reactive. I think traditional field service is reactive, 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 unless you're doing that kind of yearly service or, sort of regular schedule service. And now it's kind of more, right, the machine's telling me something's about to go wrong. Let's get there. Like you said, before that P1 comes in and everyone has to drop everything and change the schedule and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
I
Yeah.
think that's the worst thing is from a customer perspective, you don't want to be reactive. You want to be proactive. Most customers are changing in their viewpoint now to ask us, what can you do differently? And I think a lot of people out there understand it's about being proactive rather than reactive because once you're being reactive, that means normally there's an outage somewhere. And that's not what any customer wants.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's keep that uptime up.
Yes.
So thinking about sort of, it sounds like you've done a lot of kind of implementations and like sort of, I guess, assessing technology and working it out. But sometimes, with innovation, we try something, it doesn't work, we learn from it, we move on. Have you got any sort of examples of where you, I guess, had a field service innovation that didn't quite give the results that you were looking for and like almost what you learned from that?
Yeah, I think it's really when you start to look at the beginning of UCIC technology. So we started to come into the market more in 2015 onwards. We tried to implement some UCIC, and when we did it on a desk controlled environment, it worked and it looked really good and everyone's going, this is absolutely amazing. Oh, instead of having to send, say, a junior engineer who then has to call for a senior engineer to come and join them, so you've got to travel and you've got that waste within your travel, they can just log in now and they can see what they're seeing and they can point them to what they've got to touch and what they've got to reset. And the trial looked great, so we implemented, but what we didn't do is actually do a wider trial, which we should have done, across different geographies and different areas, because, of course, as we all know, the mobile technology in the UK has been brilliant at times, but at other areas you won't have much of a signal. And if you've got a lot of remote sites, all of a sudden you're expecting to be able to get somebody to dial in and see when you're doing heavy video across it. When the network now it's different with 5G, but a long time ago when it wasn't as much, there was a lot more GPRS still out there, and 3G, which is a little bit kind of, should we say, wafer thin at the time on some of the sites. It meant that we thought this was going to be the be all and end all, and actually it didn't. It was great on some sites, but probably for 75% of the remote sites, it didn't give us what we wanted. So we had to learn from that and then understand that actually we can still do this, but we have to attempt it in a different way. But we've got to put new Wi-Fi in on the site where we've got the connectivity on the site. Don't rely on the mobile signal. Then let's start putting Wi-Fi kind of routers in. Then you start going, but actually, hang on, what's the cost going to be doing that across 700 sites? Does it actually then balance off? And will we get the payback? Yes, over time you will do. But when you start to put the business case together, when you're looking at going, it's going to take 5 years to pay off, you then go, maybe this isn't the right time to do that. So that was one that I learned by to probably do a bit more testing and look at all the user cases before you go live with something.
Yeah, so sort of test it in the still start small, but test it kind of out and about in the field.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
completely.
yeah, yeah. And I think you've touched on one of my other questions around that balance of innovation versus operational efficiency and cost management. Like you said, that whole kind of, this is going to save us sending a highly qualified, expensive engineer, but actually having to install Wi-Fi across 700. That's quite a balance to have to maintain when you're thinking about these things.
Completely agree. And I think if I try and look at it, balancing that innovation with operational efficiency and then the cost management, it's always a big challenge because I want to inherently make things better. I want to improve things. I want to make it quicker, faster, reduce our costs. So sometimes you might look at something and go, it's going to cost me £500,000 to implement and £150,000 a year. So the payoff, there has to be a payoff of some description. But I think companies are now moving more to actually, is it just a payoff on a financial or are we improving the customer experience? Because sometimes your payoff would be your CSAT score is going to go up so much that you can win more business from it. So it's sometimes now you will be looking for how you can make those operational efficiencies, but at the same time giving a better customer experience, which allows you to bring more customers in because it's quite a fickle market out there at times. And when people say, I'm with this company at the moment and they are helping me. They've become faster, quicker. They're reacting and they're getting out to us quicker. And the first time fix is improving, and that's all happening from the innovation. That passes on very quickly, and that's where you can win more business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you touched on that sort of the key metrics, talking about your CSAT score, your customer satisfaction. What are the other kind of key metrics that you use to measure success?
So one I'm very, very keen on, and I bang the drum all the time, is that first time fix rate, coupled with repeat faults. I could give the best first time fix rate in the world, but the fault comes back in the next day and we fix it again immediately, but it comes back in. Now that creates a really poor customer experience. If I can get a very good first time fix rate and we can look over time and go, that fault is not coming back in again, so we have truly fixed the fault as well, that should start to drive up your customer experience. So if I can get the raw SLA up at the same time with a really high first time fix rate, if I'm a customer and going, when we do have a problem, you get to us in that SLA very quickly and you actually fix it first time. And you help us then to stay up longer. If you are a retail customer and their EPOS system's gone down, well, they can't take any cash, they can't take any cards, they're losing money. If I get to them and go, I fixed it, don't worry, and I'm there within half an hour and it's a 2 hour SLA, I'm really quick, that's great. And I fix it for you. And then I leave site and then 20 minutes later it goes again, that's not a great experience for them and it's not helping them evolve as well and drive their customers to spend more because a lot of customers will then go, I've had enough in that shop today and walk out. So if you get that first time fix rate up and get your raw SLA up, I think that's really good. You've got to couple that, like I said, there with your repeat visit rate. That has to be as low as you possibly can. So that percentage of service calls which require us to go for follow-up visit, the lower I can get that, the better it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's so much data out there at the moment. And as we're digitalizing everything, you're getting all this reams of data. And it's like you say, focusing on what's important. But what's your strategy for making sure that the insights lead to improvements or actions rather than just, oh, we've got reports for the sake of reports because we can have reports?
Yeah. I I like dashboards, and I like dashboards which are interactive and give you 3 clicks and you've got to where you need to get to. There is nothing worse for me than being given a report on Excel and you're trying to figure out what it's saying. I want the data, the insights, pointing us to where we are brilliant and where we're not. Because sometimes you have to look at both parts. You've got to look at where you're really excelling so you can then start to understand why. And then from that, really prioritize those insights. So sometimes everything's not as equally important at the time. And you'll have to pivot depending on what the customer is and what the customer needs are. But actually being able to get something which can give a impact on the business, impact to the customer for an improvement is what we should be doing. If I look again, going back to the first time fix rates, you may have a low first time fix rate. So you need to get the data and the insights to give you the analysis of what's causing that. Actually, are we sending engineers out without the right stock in advance? Did we know that we needed a quarter-inch washer or whatever it might be on 90% of our tickets? So why aren't they on there? So you've got to make sure the actions you take actually make a positive difference moving forward. You can't just look at your data and go, that looks good. Actually, okay, if it looks good, why does it look good? What have we done differently? Actually, have we done that everywhere? Have we only done that in one region of the country? Why have we only done it in that region? They've only got that customer, but that's fine then. If someone else has got the same similar customer, then we need to pass that information on to them as well to ensure we have exactly the same kind of stock levels on a van.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So having that kind of that high level sort of KPI and then being able to, like you say, drill into it and say, right, what's the reason underneath it?
And I think, yeah, you've got to also make sure you are holding regular review meetings as well to actually look at those insights and then actually progress the actions. There's no point having all this data and all this insight if you're not making actions come to life. And sometimes you kind of help create a strategy for 12, 24, 36 months because you can't do everything in one go. So some of them, yeah, it's very quick. You can change the stock level. Some of them might point in actually you've got to retrain all your engineers and it's a 6 month lead time for the courses. But you've got to make sure you're following that up with your actions.
Yeah. So touching on that around kind of, maybe not necessarily just technology, but processes as well. Have you got that you can think of a process or a technology implementation that's sort of made the biggest positive impact on your team's effectiveness?
So I think if I roll back, Hutchison 3G back in, I think it was 2003 when they went live with the first 3G mobile phone network in the UK. Before that, believe it or not, the company I was with, or I just joined at that time actually, were using CB radio still to contact the engineers out in vans. So mobile technology and having that mobile signal it's probably got to be the biggest game changer there's been. That's allowed us to go from having a box in the back of your van with 10 or 15 different A to Z maps where you keep pulling over every 20 minutes to turn the page to see where you've got to go to next, to then being able to just having back in the day, Garmin or TomTom to direct you. And
Yeah.
now, because of that mobile technology, you're able to have the route uploaded to a van immediately. When you look at the vehicles now and the technology within the vehicles, instead of having something stuck on the windscreen, it's on a screen in the van, and it's talking to you to say you need to turn right. So, and that's all come from mobile technology. So, a bit of a high level one. Now I get it, and it's not a specific system, but I think mobile technology is what's transformed field engineering more than anything else and allowed us to become more effective, faster, quicker, more efficient at what we're doing.
Yeah. And I guess it's also brought flexibility as well, because instead of saying, right, this is Bob's patch, Bob knows all the local roads, he can get there the quickest, Bob's off sick, actually, we need to send Jenny. And she's now got all of Bob's information at her fingertips of, what's happened previously, how to get there the quickest, customer details, all that sort of stuff because of the mobile technology.
And it's instantaneous as well. That's the biggest thing now. So I went back earlier, when I was saying the signal used to be a little bit kind of thin in some places. Majority of the UK now, we've still got the odd black spot, of course, but the majority of the UK, you can get the information you need within seconds. And I think as we've now moved into 5G, and you can now start using UCIC video technology a lot better, I am starting to see the need for as many highly skilled field engineers is coming down slightly, because the reality is in the early 2000s, most field organizations had technicians, engineers, and then senior engineers. Oh, then let's just say you used to have 30% technicians, 40% engineers, and 30% senior engineers. You're probably finding now you've only actually got about 10% senior engineers, because they can sit remotely in an office and talk to 40 people in a day rather than traveling to just 4 sites and seeing 4 engineers. So it flips the skill levels to a degree as well.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I was going to say that's quite a broad one, but actually, yeah, it's transformative, massively transformative. So I just want to touch on customer experience. We've sort of talked about it a little bit in some of the previous answers, but how have you seen customer expectations kind of evolve in the field sector?
At pace, I think is probably the best way to put it. Again, if you go back to the early 2000s, the expectation quite often was we'll put a ticket in and you'll be there the next day, unless it was a major critical national infrastructure for some reason or other. But other than that, it was expectation next day or the day after. Now, the expectation quite often is within 4 hours, within 2 hours, because technology has advanced so quickly now, and so much, one server can take an entire company down. So now they're wanting that faster response, which means you happen to, when you're building out systems with customers now, really talk about ensuring that you've got that capability within your system to go, you can't just rely on one server, you've got to have two in there, you've got to have your backup, because the one thing you don't want to do, and it goes against what I'm here for, looking after field teams, you don't want to be sending an engineer because you're completely off the air. What you want is to be sending an engineer within the next couple of days to swap out a failed server, because your other's working absolutely fine and the redundancy's passed over seamlessly. So you've had no impact to your service, to your uptime. If you've got just that one, you're going to be impacted. So I think that expectation of an instant response has evolved massively as well. And customers no longer will accept a 2 or 3 day response. Quite often, it has to be almost instantaneous. So you've got to work with your customers as well to make sure they've got the right systems in place to allow them to not have that downtime.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the sort of the other balance that we're looking at is, bringing in new technology to improve your efficiency also needs to improve the customer
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I could bring something in which goes, this is going to be great. I'm going to reduce my travel time by 30 minutes per ticket, as an example. And that's great. But unless the customer sees a benefit for that, why do they want that? How is it going to benefit them themselves as well? You could, if you're not careful, go into a trap of going, by implementing this, I could reduce my workforce by 20%, because it's going to give us more capacity. But actually, what that means, if you're looking at, if you've got a national team, have you now got the engineers in the right place to still make it to a site? Because you may say you need less engineers, but if now your closest engineer is 2 hours away and they get stuck in a bit of traffic, which we know happens quite often in the UK, that stops you from actually meeting the customer SLAs as well and their expectations. So yes, you might be able to go, this will help us drive efficiency and reduce our headcount, but does that mean you can then deliver for the customer correctly?
Yeah, yeah. It's a tricky balance, right? Tricky balance.
Completely, 100%. And I think being able to let the customer self-serve more as well, so using customer service portals, rather than saying you must telephone us and then you must wait for a phone call back, as an example. Now, to be able to say, here's an app, you can log the ticket via an app, you can see the updates, you can then see automatically what's coming from a engineer. So, let's go back to the 2000s again. How did they know what time the engineer was going to be there? Because they would have to telephone a help desk. A help desk would then have to telephone the local team. The local team manager would then radio the engineer. The engineer would say, I'm stuck on my job. I'll be there in 2 hours. And all of that had to flow all the way back. And it probably took 2 hours for the customer to find out when someone's coming. Now, in theory, with AI, with all the innovation, customer portals, they should be able to log a ticket and within minutes realistically see when they can expect to see an engineer arriving and get those updates. There's been a massive accident and all lanes of the motorway is stuck. The engineer won't be moving for hours, so we're having to redirect another engineer. And you can give those, because if a customer gets that information and that communication, they're normally a lot happier than trying to go, well, I thought Jane or Bob or Freddie was arriving in an hour. Why haven't they arrived? If they can see there's been an accident, we're rerouting. Human nature will only go, well, you're trying your best, aren't you? So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's about managing expectations, building trust, lots of communication, that open communication, isn't it?
Yes, completely.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we're seeing, sort of almost that Uber experience as well, so people are expecting to have an app that says, here's your engineer, he's coming, instead of that, we have to stay in, he'll be there between 8 and 5. It's like, well, no, he'll be there between 9:36 and 10:36. And then you can get on with your day and manage your day and all that sort of stuff because you've got that information. And if it changes, you're told about it.
Exactly.
So it's that trust, it's that expectation.
Yes,
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah. Interesting. So we talked a little bit earlier about employees. So, I'd like to touch on sort of employee experience and like, what's your sort of philosophy for developing talent and building effective teams within the sort of field service industry?
So if I split that into two and first look at developing talent, I always try and benchmark things on would I want one of my daughters to join this company and do we offer development? Um, I've seen a company before that one of my daughters joined before she joined the forces, and the reality was you could see they were not interested in developing the person. They just wanted a person to do a job, and that was it. And that's when we had the conversation, and I said, look, you need to go to a company which you can sit there and go, I can see a career roadmap. I can see opportunities if I put the effort in, because a company's not there to self-serve everybody. You have to be willing to go, I want to commit to improve as well. Once you get to that point, field engineers, you might get somebody join you as an apprentice. 18-year-old, straight out of school, never really been in a job. My hope is that you can always go, well, look, within the next 5 years, this is where you can get to. And here's the skills and experiences you can learn along the way. At times, that means that actually you bring some brilliant people into a business and you see very quickly they are the future. They're going to be absolutely fantastic. But they end up leaving you because they find another company who can offer a higher salary, as an example. You can't stop that. You've got to allow it to
Yeah.
go, but you hope that you treat someone with such a good respect that one day they come back to your company and they've gathered new skills from another company as well and brought those back in. So I think you have to be willing to invest in people, but you've got to get the handshake with them to invest in themselves as well and be willing to commit. Building effective teams is actually something I think is very hard because you've got to be able to get a team where everybody wants to go in the same direction. If you don't have everybody pulling in the same direction, you get slowed down very quickly. When you're looking at transformation, and as we say now, it's happening at pace quite often, it becomes very hard if there's just one person in a team of six pulling in a completely different direction. It will probably slow you down by 50%. And actually, it will at times cause irritation within the team. You get a little bit of anger coming out at times from people, and you don't want that in a team. I personally want everybody to be happy, excited, joyful. Yes, sometimes work isn't the nicest to get that, but for the majority of the time, you should be quite happy with what you're doing and excited. So if you can build a team where everybody wants the same thing, everybody wants to see that innovation, and they understand that actually this is about us improving. Because what do you want to do is it's not about making the efficiency savings, it's about creating that gap in our capacity versus our demand so we can bring new work in. So actually, quite often, it's not about just reducing the headcount, it's about going, actually, we've created 10 FTEs worth of efficiency here. That means those 8 new contracts we've just won, I don't need to increase my headcount. I can absorb that. And then from a business perspective, well, that's brilliant because your margins are just going to go up straight away. That then gives people the longevity in careers. And so I think it's about developing your talent from the grassroots all the way through, giving people an opportunity, and then building teams where everybody wants to go in the same direction. And you use innovation, use transformation, use new technology, but for the right reasons to actually try and improve and grow your business.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Just going back to the kind of the developing talent, like having that. Would I want, that you're adding that personal element by saying, is this, would I recommend this to my daughter? And I think that's such an interesting way of looking at it and thinking, because we sometimes probably get carried away with, well, that's a great company to work for because they're a big shiny name, but actually, is there that path? Is there, can she see what the future looks like in that company? So, that's a new way of thinking at it, but a new way of looking at it. I really like that. And do you think you've had to, I guess, have you had to work with teams where introducing new technology has been a challenge? And, how do you deal with that real resistance to change?
I think every role, every company I've gone to, yes, because when you join a company, quite often the company's bringing you in because they want somebody who's not company bound to look at things in a different way. And that's not from a bad reason. Sometimes you can quite often find engineers, should we say, get set in their ways. And then somebody new comes along and goes, I've seen this work over here before using, UCIC technology. And then you'll get quite often, I don't want that. Why do I need that? So it's about trying to make sure you get the adoption with them and you get that change story, and you actually give people a reason and an understanding of how and why it's going to improve things for them. It can't be it's going to be better for the company every time when you can actually get someone to go, just imagine that time at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're on your own and you can't find the fault, you can't figure out the resolution, and the customer's breathing down your neck and you're getting all tense. Now you can flick up a button, say to somebody else, I need assistance. AI can then sometimes point you in the right direction. AI might then give you the page number to look like in a manual. So instead of you trying to find the manual in the back of a van, AI can go to you straight away with what you've told me the symptoms are. I suggest you go to page 27, paragraph 2. Or it could be that you then get that from the secure desk or, one of the remote desks, somebody remote in from a second line who can then help you. So once you get that story to people and then they kind of understand how it helps them, they'll go on the journey with you because it is very hard, specifically field engineering. You will quite often see that people become resistant because they go, I've been doing it this way for 20 years. Why should I do anything different? But it's only because nobody's explained how it helps and benefits them as well.
Yeah, so really driving that, what's in it for me?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
at the end of the day, the field engineers are the face of a business with customers. And if they go into something and then they're not excited and enthused about what they're doing as well, it just doesn't bode well long term. So if you can get somebody to really, really start understanding why you're trying to make changes and why you want to do something different, the employee engagement also goes up as well. And we all know that if you get a high employee engagement, your first time fix comes down actually. Your repeat visits come down because employees who are highly engaged will take that extra effort, that extra step. Somebody who's not engaged with you, who you've got that culture where you haven't brought them on board with the change, are just not going to take you where you need to go.
Yeah, yeah, that whole sort of driving employees' satisfaction drives customer
Yes.
success. Yeah, 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 yeah. The last thing you want is someone kind of mumbling and grumbling and going, "Oh, they've given me this gadget. I don't want to use it." In front of a customer, it's kind of like, "Hey, cool, this is so cool. I could do this," and about that.
Literally, I remember many years ago, one of my colleagues, absolutely loved the gentleman, but he was there just whinging about these new PDAs. And I'll be honest, like, they were really slow and they slowed us down a bit. But I was loving it with new technology. It's something different to do. And once I worked out how to utilize it to my benefit as well, it made my life faster and quicker. But he was resistant. I mean, it took months to get him on board. And then twigged one day it's about trying to show him how much quicker he can get home at the end of the day and finish all of his jobs and all of his notes. And once he realised it was going to make things better and faster and quicker and easier for him, he actually got on board. But at first, all it was something new. Oh, it's another thing I've got to carry and I've got to update. They're just trying to micromanage me rather than recognising actually it was a tool to aid him as well.
Yeah, exactly. And quite often it's a really powerful message when you're trying to drive user adoption to get the person who's the most resistant
Yes.
on board, because they're probably the one who grumbles the
Yeah,
loudest.
exactly.
So if they're the one actually doing the selling for you and kind of go, do you know what? I didn't like it. I didn't want it, but actually, this is what it's done for me, guys. Get on board. That's such a powerful message.
Yes, completely agree.
Yeah, yeah. So let's have a little look to the future. What do you think the field service industry is going to look like in 5 years?
I think it's going to be even more field service engineers than we have today. A lot of people think there'll be less because of AI. I think there will be more because as technology keeps advancing, things such as the Internet of Things. So I let's think British Gas is a brilliant example. A while ago, only thing British Gas did was go and read your meter or fix your boiler. Now, if you look at it, British Gas do all sorts of things. They look after your hob, they look after your cooker as well. They're starting to slowly, I understand from what I've read, move into things like the Internet of Things. So actually now, who would have thought 10 years ago you could have a fridge which can tell you if you're 100 miles away that you're running low on milk? And that you can actually see inside your fridge from 100 miles away. But all of that works on technology. So the more that we advance with technology, the more devices, the more gadgets, the more routers, the more switches we're going to have out there. That's going to drive more people to have to go and monitor, look after these devices. Yes, there's a lot more automation you can bring to things and you can switch things remotely. But when something fails, unless it's within a rack where you can automate it with a robot, such as, a great Amazon warehouse type approach, then actually you're still going to send a human being to swap that piece over. So I think I actually see it's going to grow the field service, but what it will become is a lot more fast, quick swap outs with actually a even lower skill set required than we have today, because the technologies that are coming along will allow for a smaller subset of very highly skilled people remotely guiding other people on what to do. So you will probably see more people out and about with the lower skill set. I've even seen some companies who have talked about, instead of sending an engineer to sort something out, sending a courier who just delivers the parcel and then they remote into a customer, and the customer then self-serves. So you're going to have those kind of two pieces we're going to have to weigh up against, whereas what's the right thing for the customer and is actually cheaper versus actually is that what the customer needs, though, because if you're in a shop, do they really want to have one of their team having to remote into somebody to change an EPOS system when sending an engineer may get it just as quick as a courier and can do the job faster? Might be a little bit more expensive because you're relying on paying the engineer rather than just sending a courier. So there's going to have to come that fine balance, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. That whole kind of, there's so much talk about AI, as we said at the beginning, and, that fear when it first came out that it's just going to replace humans and no one's going to have a job anymore. So it's really interesting to hear that kind of that thought that actually we're going to need more because there's going to be, like you said, more machines, more automation, more parts that could go wrong that actually need someone to fix them.
Yes, 100%. I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Interesting. And what are your goals for the next 24 months?
Right. Probably we have got some big transformation projects we're working on at the moment. We are looking at a new scheduling tool, enhancing the scheduling tool that we've got today potentially versus moving to a new scheduling tool. That's going to transform how we schedule our engineers, how our engineers interact with our customers. For me, it is about the next 24 months taking us from being a really, really good, operationally effective unit to actually leading in the field. I want more customers going. We go to SCC because their field engineers are the most diligent, the fastest, the most effective. Give us the best user experience, that whole DEX experience as well. If you are a company now, you've got to think about what your employee wants from a digital experience as well. And quite often that will be paired with the likes of what my field engineers do out there by, getting their laptops back up, getting their monitors working again. So for me, it's about literally trying to drive our customer experience even further than it has done the last 2 years. We've really improved our first time fix rate, which is something I now put my hand on my heart and say I 100% believe those first time fix rates. And actually, quite a few of our customers have come to us to say we can really see now that you are driving for your field engineers to deliver that first time fix, to get us back up again as quickly as possible. And that you're not thinking so much about just trying to log and flog tickets. You're actually trying to give that experience to us. And that, I believe, is what's winning a lot more contracts for SCC and, really putting us into the forefront as well now.
Yeah, that differentiation in service. You're not just a tech provider. It's the service that wraps around it as well.
Massively. So many companies out there offer human beings. They offer, that labor, should we say. But that's not what you want. You want somebody who's going to give you the entire experience. We all talk about it, the Amazon experience. It's so much better than some other careers out there you may get. And I don't want us to be Amazon, obviously, but I want us to be in a position where people go, there's actually nothing more that I would want from you because you're delivering everything that we want. And I don't say deliver as in career delivery, but within the services that we offer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate, and it sounds like it's very exciting.
Oh, definitely exciting and a hell of a lot to do, yes.
Keep you busy. Keep you busy. So, just a couple of little sign-off questions, just a bit of light-hearted. What's one old school tool or practice from your sort of field service past that you secretly still love? Your kind of field service guilty pleasure.
It sounds really bad, but turn it off and on because it normally fixes it. The amount of times that I was out 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, a microwave link was down, you're taking customers off air, and you just turn it on and on, and guess what? It comes back to life. Now, yeah, you shouldn't. Yes, we should. It's something to do, right? It brings it back up, but you've got to make sure you then get underneath. Why did the fault happen in the first place? You can't just go, "I've done it. I'm walking away now." But it is that bit. I have been known historically. I'm not out in the field anymore, so any customers who may listen to this, I don't get in the field, so don't worry, but kicking something and seeing it come back to life as well. So I've seen many engineers a long time ago giving something a bit of a bang on the side and go, I knew that's what would solve it. So I think it's sometimes we try and overcomplicate things, and sometimes you can go back to some quite basic, simple ways of doing fixes rather than trying to complicate everything.
Yeah. And if you had a magic wand that you could instantly solve a field service challenge that you're seeing today, what would it be?
I'd want to fix two things. One is traffic. Traffic is becoming so problematic in field service now. Yes, AI is great at trying to help us because if you look at the Midlands as an example, I think anybody knows anybody trying to go north or south of Birmingham every morning, you're going to spend an hour and a half. So you've got to then start using AI to go, actually, let's fix that. Let's actually go to this appointment first and then travel up past the, should we say, the red traffic areas when it's a lot quieter. So I would love to fix traffic and have just private roads for field engineers. That would work brilliantly. I think also it would be the technology on handsets. I think the iPhones and the Samsungs of the world have advanced so fast and so quickly, but sometimes I don't think the offerings of technology which you can use in field service going with those, it is truly right. Because if you look at a scheduling tool, quite often somebody would create a scheduling tool but not use everything that that phone can do because the phones have got so much power and so much technology in them now. And I think it's slowly advancing. And I saw something from somebody the other week, and it was brilliant, where they were using the camera. Obviously, we've all seen it on QR codes, etc. But the way that it was using it instantaneously as well, and updating then straight onto from one device onto another. The documentation they needed was brilliant. So I would love to actually wave a magic wand and go to engineers. That new Apple device, the new Samsung device you've got actually gives you everything from a work perspective as well, because sometimes you do get a little bit constrained by the systems and the tools you're using.
Yeah, so having those software solutions, keeping up to date with the features on the
Yes,
phones.
completely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Thank you so much for your time today, Adam.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
If any of the challenges we've discussed today resonate with you, or if you're facing your own unique field service hurdles, we'd love to help. At Leadent Digital, we specialize in providing practical, effective solutions to help service organizations streamline operations, enhance customer experience, and leverage technology for long-term success. Let's keep the conversation going. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your network. Your support helps us bring more conversations like this to you. Until next time, keep innovating and leading the way in field service.